What's up, guys? How we doing? Wednesday night hangout. A little bit later than normal. Technical difficulties. My fault. But Thomas, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. I wanted you to double check that your mic is in the is going to the right place, just to make sure.
Oh,
You just sound different in my ear as we get going here tonight, but make sure everyone can hear
there
you
we
via
go.
the
I think we're better
fancy
now.
mic. There we go. I know people would
Yes.
like that.
Good
So
call.
yes, good to be here. NFL draft, right? We are about 24 hours away from Philadelphia being 3 hours away from pick 32, right? Because eventually it's going to be kind of an 8 o'clock start, and then we'll see how quickly the first round goes. Sometimes picks start flying, sometimes they don't, and so it's going to be, I think, a long wait unless they want to go ahead and trade up. And there's a lot of things going on over the past 24, 48 hours that I think is changing the draft a little bit, Josh. We'll get into that and see what happens.
I'm excited. Cannot wait. And there's a reason why Thomas and I, been a little bit later. Some technical difficulties, even with the mic started out here. Working some things out, but with the draft coverage and everything else, come hang out with us. It's going to be a blast. We got some crazy giveaways that we're doing. Figure out who the Eagles pick. Do they make a selection in the first round? Do they trade up? Who that's going to be? But yeah, I cannot wait. I'm starting to, is it a Malachi Starks trade? There's a million different scenarios, but it's like Malachi Starks trade up. Is it a Mason Taylor falls to 32? Or maybe they trade up and go that direction. Do they get a WalterNolen if he's still available and a couple others? I would very much enjoy that, but you have Peter Schrager, who his mock draft had Maxwell Hairston. That's a name we've mentioned a couple times, but not
Yeah.
like a, bigger, more realistic, I guess. But for him to say that, then okay, he only does one mock draft, and for that to be the guy, maybe he's hearing some things. But it's also like smokescreen season, especially this late to the draft. So that's the difficult part too. Is like he may legit be getting some, or putting some feelers out there and going, hey, the Maxwell Harrison, that might be a possibility. But is that realistic, or is that just to throw every other team off the scent and go, yeah, well, they're actually not going to take him? So I can't wait. It's a blast as always with the draft.
Yeah, I think things are starting to change at the top and kind of working their way down like a domino, as the NFL draft normally is. Right now, the big question is what happens at number 4, because I think we have the first 3 draft picks pretty much figured out. We know it's going to be Cam Ward. We feel really confident it's going to be Travis Hunter as the second overall draft pick to the Cleveland Browns. I'm pretty sure, I'm like 90% sure the Giants are going to go with a dual Carter today. Seemed like he was 100% sure, talking to reporters, saying like he's going to be a Giant. He's excited to go ahead and move to New York City, put his Eagle fandom behind him, play Philadelphia twice a year. And so if that is the top 3, and there isn't a scenario where the Giants panic and go Shedeur Sanders at number 3 overall, which I don't see happening, then you get to number 4 with the New England Patriots, and the draft really starts right there because New England potentially could just simply go Will Campbell and take an offensive lineman and move on. New England could go ahead and trade out of that pick. There's a lot of buzz right now that after the first 3 draft picks, Josh, Ashton Genty is the kind of hot commodity that teams are very much interested in trading up to potentially go ahead and get. Throwing a guy like Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, also a hot commodity early there in the top 10. And you have really the makings for a pretty wild first couple of draft picks after we get past number 3, and that's when the draft starts to get really exciting.
All bets are off at that point. We'll figure out who it is. And if you're trying to make picks or plays, I'll just say this because I've looked at all the different like props and, because people, some people interested in that, of course. But yeah, it's like, is Ashton Jeanty going to be over under 6.5? Right? Is he drafted before that? Is it after?
I think
Do
before.
teams go? I think so. But then there's also the top 10. I think 3.5 is the number for SEC players, and 2.5 is the number for Big Ten players. Like that's when you go, okay, well, Cam Ward is one that's not. That's going to take up position. Travis Hunter is one that's not. That's going to take up position. Does Shedeur Sanders go earlier than what we might expect? Is it later? I don't know. I've just tried to go through the board so many times, and I'm like, I think it's going to be over on those numbers because that's quality players. But there's a part of me that goes like, I don't know. Every single year you have one of those guys, usually in the top 10 even, that's like, whoa, okay, there's the first domino. Like that's not one that we expected. That's not one that the mock draft usually had a player going at that spot. So we'll be seeing. That's one of the interesting parts of where do these guys go. Tyler, appreciate the 10 bomb. Let's go. Says, and I know what this is about, but what's good, everyone? Here to remind Josh for that Luther Burden seed, but in all seriousness, so excited for these next days. Continues to plant the seed that Luther Burden is a potential option for the Philadelphia Eagles at 32. We will
Okay,
agree to
well,
disagree continually, Tyler,
sure.
but we appreciate the support, man. The OG.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. Right now, I think the big conversation in Philadelphia is Walter Nolen. Where does Walter Nolen go, Josh? I've talked about him a lot the past couple of days. Walter Nolen went from being, a late first round guy. He was going to go anywhere between 25 and 32. He would not have gotten past Philadelphia. I felt very confident in that. Getting to number 32 overall, obviously had a top 30 visit. Philadelphia loves this defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Now, though, I mean, literally in the past 7 days, Walter Nolen has gone from a consensus bottom third of the first round in the NFL draft to the top third. I mean, there are mock drafts with Walter Nolen being a top 10 draft pick. Peter Schrager has him, I think, right now as the 11th overall draft pick to the San Francisco 49ers. And that, to me, is the Eagles' favorite target in this first round. Now, obviously, they can have other people. They like Mike Green, which edge rusher is their favorite. I'm sure that they are big fans of a Tyler Warren because, speaking of trading Dallas Goedert and want a tight end.
Sure.
But it seems like the realistic target that they were really looking at the past couple of weeks was Walter Nolen. I think he's done. I think he's going to go way too early. So now Philadelphia, I mean, do they obviously reshuffle? And they've been doing this, wargaming it out for days. But that is the draft pick that I think most Eagle fans were really excited about. Watch him fall to 23, go up and trade with the Packers, get Walter Nolen, pair him with Jalen Carter, and that dream officially seems to be dead.
I'm going to hold out hope.
Okay.
The odds are, yes, that's probably the case. And not saying that it's the same scenario here, but Nolan Smith was mock draft, a lot of them closer into the teens, and it's not as likely to go back and fall to basically the very end of the first round. Now, Daniel Jeremiah mentioned Jalen Walker is, like, oh, hey, maybe he keeps sliding further and how he trades up and goes and gets him. But same deal for Walter Nolen. I think that's the pick. Like you said there, if it's like 23, 24, I think that's a lot. We start at 23, 24, Eagles trade up, we get the breaking news, and all of a sudden it's a wrap. Walter Nolen is going to be playing next to Jalen Carter. So, but it's almost every single, because Quinyon Mitchell wasn't supposed to fall where he did. Cooper DeJean wasn't supposed to be a second rounder. So
yeah,
I will remain to just put it out there of there is a chance, there's a possibility.
Yeah.
Now the odds are, do we get a third, fourth draft in a row, whatever, of a guy just falling to the Eagles and be like, hey, great, we'll just take him? Probably not. But realistically, yeah, I mean, if you want one of the best options, best fits, why not Walter Nolen for the Eagles at 32? I mean, come on, that'd be ridiculous if he ended up doing that.
Yeah. I think ridiculous is the right word. I just don't see it happening. I think he gets past 15. He really feels like, especially in the modern NFL, people are watching all these defensive tackles. Milton Williams gets the most money out of any free agent just after a good season. I don't know if it's an elite season. I think it's an elite playoff performance, an elite Super Bowl, but obviously defensive tackle is a prime person to have in your locker room. And so I just don't see that falling down to Philadelphia. And I think edge rusher, and a lot of people have talked about this, Josh, the consensus would be if you don't get Nolen, then you get one of the 7 edge rushers that could go in round 1 or anywhere between round 1 and early in round 2. I think they are very interested in later round edge rusher talent. I think Jalen Hunt is a great example of how they view some of the 3rd round draft picks, the 4th round draft picks, the 5th round draft picks, that they could find some value at a position that they feel good about because of Jalen Hunt, because of Nolan Smith, and bringing in Josh Uche. So to me, I said on my show today, it feels like we are down to essentially 4 players. If we're not going to get an edge rusher, which maybe if Jalen Walker were to fall, he's the guy because he's the best edge rusher. Maybe Mike Green, if they don't have an undraftable grade on him, were to fall, but I don't think he does. To me, it's Malachi Starks. That seems to be right there. Mason, the tight end out of LSU, also seems to be very high on Philadelphia's list. And then it's one of 2 cornerbacks. I think Trey Amos, depending on where he goes, I have him higher up in the first round, not getting to 32. Maybe he falls, maybe he doesn't. I've seen some mock drafts with him at 22, at 32, at 15, one of the ones I saw yesterday, and then Maxwell Hairston. So you have a safety, and obviously Nick Emenwari, but no one thinks Nick Emenwari is going to be there at 32. So one safety, the tight end, which is probably not going to be Warren. It's not going to be Colston Loveland. It is going to be Mason Taylor. And then your pick of which cornerback you want, that to me seems like the 4 that you realistically look at right now if you were going to stay at 32 and take your pick.
Or you could, because you play hypotheticals all day long. But
Sure.
It was interesting that Tony Pauline had reported that Oluwafemi Oladejo, UCLA edge, was a potential interest for the Eagles at 32. Now, that feels like And this is the part where, like, mock drafts are
Sure.
only so great until we get to the real draft. Then it's like, oh well, all bets are off. But like Oladejo, basically, depending on which mock draft but you could do PFF and almost guarantee yourself to take him in the third round. Like, you could just wait and take him in the third round. If this dude, based on Pauline and other reports from scouts and kind of just hypotheticals thrown out there for other mock drafts, is saying, yeah, he's kind of in that 30 to 45 range, and if Philly truly believes in it, and Vic Fangio's going, no, that's my guy. Like, I understand production, not necessarily there. He's raw. He was an off-ball linebacker, transition to edge, has a lot of stuff that he needs to clean up and kind of develop in his pass rushing moves. But if he believes that he's the guy and he sees that, then depends on who's available on the board. If they just sit there at 32, maybe you take an edge in that position. But that is one that I would be surprised at. Yet we really never know, because that's why they do the draft here, and it's all craziness.
The surprise for me, before we get to Super Chats here, in round 1 would be Jahad Campbell. Going for a true inside linebacker would be the surprise for me. He's in Daniel Jeremiah's most recent mock draft that he dropped 5 minutes ago, so you have him and somebody else from ESPN. I forget who it was. You have two major, mock drafters with Jahad Campbell going to Philadelphia at 32. That would be surprising. And not because I don't like Jahad Campbell. I think he's the best linebacker in this draft class. I think he's a very, very good player. He's a plug-and-play starter day one. But that basically rules out any chance of Nakobe Dean winning his job back, because Nakobe Dean's not going to be ready for week 1. And so the assumption is that Campbell would start and never let go of that starting position. And the other thought is that then, do you have any belief in Jeremiah Trotter Jr.? Is he just going to be a special teams guy for many years to come? And so out of all the defensive positions that Philadelphia needs right now, linebacker's like 5th on my list. And it's not because they don't need a linebacker. I would take one in the later rounds, but you definitely need a safety, unless you are for sure getting Justin Simmons later on after the NFL draft. I would take a cornerback over a linebacker right now, just because of the young and the youth on the outside. You want to at least have some more competition. And I'd take an edge rusher and defensive tackle over taking a linebacker right now. And so if we're talking about surprises that Philadelphia could pull, Maxwell Harrison, not a surprise. Mason Taylor, not a surprise. All these other guys we talk about, wouldn't be a surprise if the Eagles got him. Jahad Campbell would be like a wow. Paying a linebacker and drafting a linebacker in the first round in the same offseason for Howie Roseman, what have you done with our GM? It'd be pretty wild.
It would be, yeah. A little bit crazy. Not as crazy as Tyler's Luther Burden, but it would be, kind of out there.
Sure.
Matt, appreciate the 10 for the Philly Special Show memberships, 10 of those. Congratulations to the members there. Also, one time with a 2, saying just wanted to show love to the best YouTubers. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Means a lot.
Appreciate that.
We do appreciate.
Got to come hang out tomorrow.
It's going to be fun. I mean, the game streams, nothing can top a Super Bowl stream. Okay, so we'll put that out there. But the draft stream is pretty electric, and for the stuff that we have planned, which we'll test it out here at the very end. So if you want to stick around and see what it's potentially
get a little preview.
Like. Richard with the 5, thank you for that, Richard. And talking about Justin Simmons, says here, I think the Eagles will sign Justin Simmons after April 28th when the free agency compensatory pick formula ends. So keep an eye.
Probably so, right? So 5 days from now. Yeah. I mean, that it would make a ton of sense, and we'll know immediately after round 1 and 2. I mean, really, unless they want to go safety, like the Penn State safety in round 2, that would signal they're probably not going Justin Simmons. Malachi Starks obviously would guarantee they're not going Justin Simmons. If it's not safety, those first 2 draft picks, then Justin Simmons becomes exponentially higher of a likelihood of actually becoming a Philadelphia Eagle. So, I mean, that's just we're going to know pretty quickly,
Yeah, same thing for Dallas Goedert. There's a lot of just waiting for the proverbial domino to fall to go, there's your answer. Like if Mason Taylor gets taken in the first round, we know already basically with what Goddard and trade him. But if Mason Taylor gets taken first, then you can just absolutely for sure cross that off the list, and probably you're going to get a Dallas Goedert trade like the following night, right? Like if it happens night 1, end it, Mason Taylor drafted, hey, congratulations, you wrapped it up, you got your tight end. Howie, you better believe, is going to be on the phones probably before then, but definitely after that to go, round 2, it's starting. Oh, by the way, Eagles have traded. Dallas Goedert, get your draft pick and just move on. So that is another one to keep an eye out for. I did think it was interesting talking about all the different potentials here and the visits of players, but you mentioned Kevin Winston Jr. a second ago, and him getting a visit. WalterNolen a visit, and we had some of these later guys, and like
Yep.
premium players, but like later guys get announced. It's you could make something more than it is. I'm not saying that it's just like the end all be all for it to go, hey, hang out. Like you're getting like a week before the draft and now you have some guys announced. But I do find it interesting because it's not like when they got announced that they had a visit. It was, oh, by the way,
Yep.
he visited with Philly, but the last date to do that was on April 16th anyway. And a lot of these happened weeks before that. So, you have some prospects that like maybe not the most upper echelon. I can understand it. Maybe an agent like, hey, he's meeting with Philly, just blast it out there, right? To just bump
Yeah.
your guy's status up there. But some of those, it's a little odd, a little strange. I'll just say that because we know how much the Eagles value the top 30, and I'm sure they know outside the public noise and the public image is like, yeah, they realize just how much a top 30 visit means. So I don't know if it's like you tell the prospect like, hey, just let's try to as much as we can. We know it's eventually going to go out there, keep it under wraps, because some of them just share on their Instagram, so it's obviously okay. It's not like don't ever do this, but I just find it interesting that some of the top like 2 or 3 guys on their list, if you look at the top 30 visits they brought in, were some of the last ones to get announced and almost try to hide until last second, last case scenario. I don't know if it means anything. Again, like I say, it could be just smokescreen, but it's always the mind games. We'll just say that. Continue to play it with other teams.
Well, in terms of mind games, I mean, Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, I'm looking at it right now. There are some very notable exceptions for people who are absentees from his first round draft selection. There is no Mike Green in round 1 of Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft. Mike Green is a first round prospect. There are a lot of mock drafts, including Mel Kiper's second to most recent one that had him going, 15 overall as the edge rusher to the Atlanta Falcons. Mike Green, of course, is the one who has 2 separate allegations. They're anonymous, essentially, allegations of sexual assault, sexual misconduct. And so you wonder, how far could he free fall in the draft? And is he a player that Philadelphia has done a lot of research on, not brought in for a top 30 visit, as you just mentioned, but maybe has talked to, at a Senior Bowl or talked to at an NFL Combine and gotten comfortable enough if he were to really, this would be a true plummet out of the first round and be there for Philadelphia at number 32. There is also, and I know I just essentially said there's no WalterNolen in the Eagles' chances. There's no WalterNolen in the first round of Daniel Jeremiah's final mock draft. Also has a lot less of extreme off-the-field issues, but there are character concerns I talked about on my show a couple of days ago with WalterNolen that have people wondering, is he mature enough? Is he ready to be, the face of a defensive line? Is he going to be kind of a half-effort sort of guy if things aren't going his way? All things that happened at Ole Miss. Both those guys not in Daniel Jeremiah's final mock draft is very interesting and just goes to show how different mock drafters, different NFL insiders rate these guys, right? Most people have Jalen Walker, the Georgia edge rusher, ahead of Mikael Williams, the other Georgia edge rusher. Not Daniel Jeremiah. He has Williams going 9 and Jalen Walker going 15. And so this is going to be the crazy part of tomorrow night because we know the first 3 draft picks. We also know that Ashton Genty's going to go in round 1. We know there's going to be a couple of offensive linemen going in in the top 10. Mason Graham out of Michigan is almost a guarantee to go in the top 10. Besides those players, right? That's 6 players essentially we know are going in the top 10. From 7 on to 32, these people are wildly, changing in terms of where they're being mocked. They could go, 12, they could go 27. Nobody knows exactly where different NFL teams have these guys rated on their draft board, and it shows in a lot of these really different final mock drafts we're getting the eve of the NFL draft.
I will be incredibly surprised, as a lot of us will, because we were talking about this just a second ago. But if WalterNolen does not,
I would be surprised.
I mean, come on. If he doesn't go in the first round and the Eagles, that means the Eagles don't select him. But if at 32, you didn't have to trade up and there's an option there.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing at that point is you really had concerns with the character issues or just, question marks there because Big Dom is the one who's spearheading that effort, which I found
very interesting.
Comical and also very interesting at the same time. Sure, he does a great job, but it's like for Howie to admit that also, it's like, yeah, that's one of Big Dom's many talents is to interview and get as much background information on players, see if they're gonna be a fit in the locker room. I think he would be all right. Like it's total speculation, right? Like I have no inside information on the Eagles and how that visit was and how they feel about WalterNolen. Maybe Daniel Jeremiah does because he does have some connection ties, obviously, to Philly, having been a scout and all that. But I would be shocked if WalterNolen is available and the Eagles pass up at 32.
I would be too. That's why
wild.
I had to at least mention the mock draft. I just, you look at these guys that you would think would be in the know, and I think Daniel Jeremiah is one of the people that, him, Field Yates, the other guy from ESPN I'm blanking on right now, is a couple that you when they say stuff, it's like, whoa, okay, Eagles could trade up for Jalen Walker. That was Daniel Jeremiah earlier this week. You talked about it on your show 2 days ago, and you go, whoa, okay, let me listen to that. And so when he has somebody going out of the first round who other mock draft, have people going 11 overall to the San Francisco 49ers, it gets very, very interesting. So the other aspect, Josh, that I think needs to be mentioned as we prepare for Philadelphia later on tomorrow night is the trades back in to the first round for quarterbacks, because the Browns and Giants are not drafting quarterback. Tom McShay says he guarantees Shedeur Sanders is not going to be a Giant at number 3 overall 5 minutes ago on his final, YouTube mock draft that he did. I think it was live as well. I was watching a little bit of that before we came on. But that would tell you the Browns and Giants both want to get a quarterback. Jackson Dart is going to go in the first round, and I'm feeling very confident there'll be a 4th quarterback going in round 1, whether that's Tyler Shuck or obviously Jalen Milroe. There was one anonymous GM apparently who told, I think it was Diana Rossini, that Jalen Milroe is their number 1 rated quarterback ahead of Cam Ward, which is pretty wild. But, talk about a floor ceiling. He is kind of the guy where you just don't know what you're going to get in terms of a runner or a passer. But those teams wanting to come back into round 1 are either going to offer Philadelphia something to trade back. You get additional draft picks. I don't think Philadelphia is that interested in acquiring more draft picks this year, Josh. So if a team goes back into round 1 to say 27 overall, the Giants come up, go to 27, back from 34, then that pushes a defensive player a little bit closer, because right now, most people would assume you get 2 quarterbacks in round 1. I think Dart makes it 3. I think that's basically a guarantee. And if you get a 4th, that shifts everything back and gives Philadelphia and maybe a higher chance of getting one of the defensive players that they really like.
It's what we can hope for. I don't think it's going to be to the luck or the fortune that we've had in some past drafts where
Maybe
it's like,
not.
hey, here's another quarterback. Let's just take all of them. It took, what was it, like 14, 15 selections, whatever it was, until we finally had a defensive player. It's just like a crazy run of offense, or maybe only like one defensive player before that. So a little bit, but yes, you're right. There's avenues to potentially get some guys to fall back, and it's the madness of different mock drafts. Heck, Peter Schrager had the 11th pick of Walter Nolen.
Yep.
So, and both respectable, both respectable guys with knowledge of the NFL and insights and team and all that. So it just shows that at the end of the day, we basically know nothing, because Peter Schrager is Walter Nolen, 11th. Daniel Jeremiah, not even selected in the first round. But that's why they draft.
By the way, let me read you Tom McShay. This was very recently on Shedeur Sanders, which I know doesn't really impact Philadelphia, but Shedeur is going to be the real topic tomorrow, because it sounds like he might be in a state of free fall. And Tom McShay told Colin Cowherd yesterday, if he doesn't get past if he actually gets past the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21, Shedeur Sanders could fall out of round 1, which is pretty crazy. McShay said this earlier today: Shedeur Sanders is not going to be a New York Giant. Shedeur Sanders is not going to be a New Orleans Saint. Some interviews didn't go well, including with the New York Giants. It didn't go well with Brian Daboll and the Giants organization. So that would tell you the Giants would not be a team trading back in for Shedeur Sanders. And, not going to be a Saint, not going to be a Giant. That means Shedeur Sanders' entire hope is a Cleveland Brown trade back in, pair him back up with Travis Hunter, which I think would make a lot of sense for Cleveland in terms of just eyeballs to the city of Cleveland, right, in Ohio. Or it's the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. Those are his 2 real shots at going in the first round, and if not, then he falls out, which, again, doesn't really impact Philadelphia, but it's going to be one of the big stories tomorrow night, especially when you get past 9 with the Saints and you start approaching 21 with the Pittsburgh Steelers to see what they can do. Yeah,
I've kind of used that as the litmus test of Pittsburgh, what happens at 21, because you're right. If you go beyond that, and especially with that report from Todd McShay, then, as crazy as it sounds, because there's some people that, and you even look at a bunch of different mock drafts, but a lot of people that have mocked him earlier, or lots of trade-up scenarios, things like that. But if it doesn't happen, then, who knows? Is he one of those guys that you're just like, well, he's still around. He's sitting there, been there for a long time and not getting selected by teams. Yeah. Maybe so. And potentially they miss out on somebody. Tyler here with a 5, by the way, said, have you seen DeBona's post about Matt Miller's mock pick for us? And then followed up to that saying, Miller said, one scout told me the Eagles will draft the biggest, best guy on the board, and he mocked us Kenneth Grant. So, That is from another.
Yeah.
That's not shocking, I guess, to say the Eagles will draft the biggest, best guy. I mean, Howie loves the trenches to begin with. So
Yeah.
just
I don't
who
know.
is that?
The problem that I have right now, because when you say biggest, baddest guy, you're saying offensive lineman or you're saying defensive line, obviously. But edge rusher, I think, makes the most sense, right? We talk about defensive tackles that are not named Walter Nolen, not named Mason Graham. That doesn't make a lot of sense, But the edge rusher class this year, Josh, is so hard to figure out because it feels like there are about 8 of them that are going to go anywhere between pick 10 and pick 50. But you might only get 2 or 3 that are actually good, that are actually legit starters. And so the question is going to be, if they're on the board and Philadelphia has 3 of the 8 that they love and 1 is left at 32 and they aren't super high on him, but they're going to panic and take the edge rusher, will they do it? Or are they just not going to take an edge rusher early and hope that they get somebody in round 5 who can come in here, learn, and turn into the Moro Jomo of the defensive end position, right? So edge rusher is the hardest one for me because there are so many. There are, 3 cornerbacks that are first-round worthy. I have Hairston as a second-round guy, but he'll probably go in the first round. You maybe make the case for 4. But any of those cornerbacks, like a Trey Amos, the guy from Michigan, if he were to fall, I think it's Will Johnson. If they were to somehow be there at 32, I just wonder if Philly feels more confident in that position group's ability in this year's draft to be a starter versus the absolute cluster it is at edge rusher. They just got to be very sure that they get the right edge rusher because there are so many to go ahead and pick right now.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to is which one. Fangio said in the recent interview that they've got their board, right? So, and that's how it's every team, but they've run through a million different scenarios. Hey, this guy's available, this guy's available. Which one do we go? They're very close, but that's why they do it. You have all, or almost all, we shouldn't say all, but almost all of the debating and like, no, I like this guy should be above him, why, reasonings, all that, so that if and when the bullets start flying and we're into the draft, then you go, all right, here's your option. We're on the clock, and we got 2 guys that are very close on the board. Which one do we go with? We already kind of figured this one out. Ultimately, I think it just comes down to if it's trade situations. If it's a trade up, trade back, that's where you're having to adjust on the fly. But in terms of rankings on the guys, right, wrong, or indifferent, they're pretty rock solid on their board. I don't think that you're going in now or at this point, a night before the draft and like, I'm not sure if we get to the edge. We kind of like these 3 different guys. We'll see who we feel on the day of. Like they have a good idea, and it's just a question of, does that guy produce? I will say that, I have a ton more confidence going into this draft than I would have, previous. Did last year, obviously, with Fangio. But before Fangio, you're kind of like, do they have the eye for talent as much? Do they have the track record proven to say, yes, I know what type of skill set, what size of player, what athleticism, all that, and how it translates. But then, you look at this past year and go, Quinton Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalix Hunt, like, come on. He knows exactly what he's doing. So for me, that's where I'm like, I'm not concerned of who they end up selecting. I'll be fine. I have my favorites, sure. But like if they go a different route, even if it's like, oh man, what is that? Right? Because like that was kind of the general consensus for a Jalix Hunt. You could say Q and Coop, those were fine. Like those were, yes, home run for the most part. Some people not as on board, but for the most part, they were. Jalix Hunt was the first one where you're going, why? Like, you got a whole lot of people going, what on earth does Vic Fangio see in Jalix Hunt to take him in the 3rd round? And then you see how it turns out. So, maybe not for a first-round grade, but we'll see night 2, probably a pick or 2, or even just some considerations of guys. And, it might be a little bit of a topic starter, arguments or debates on those. But that's what makes it fun.
Yep.
Aaron, by the way, appreciate the 2. I did get you, Aaron. I saw your comment a second ago, but I was going to Tyler just because it was on the same topic line, so we didn't get sidetracked. But we appreciate the super chats. We do get to all those. Said, you see us, a question here, you see us trading for a veteran with 32, and if so, who? Obviously kind of referring to Adam Schefter's comment of the Eagles more likely to trade for a veteran than to trade up in the draft.
Yeah, but I don't have someone with the 32nd overall draft pick. The only one that I can think of is Trey Hendrickson, and obviously if the Cincinnati Bengals ahead of Philadelphia were to go edge rusher, maybe that makes Hendrickson more expendable. They still have not gotten a contract extension with him. The same can be said about TJ Watt. I just don't think that's likely. If you were to put a gun to my head and say, give me a couple of names, I just did. But the 32nd overall draft pick, there just isn't somebody out there right now, Josh, who screams first off, worth the 32nd overall draft pick and worth Philadelphia giving up the 32nd overall draft pick to go ahead and get. So I think when Schefter says they're more likely to really stay put at 32 and then later on in the draft, give up a third-round draft pick, give up a fifth-round draft pick, mix in an additional third-round draft pick in 2026, it would be for someone like that. I just can't figure out who it is. And I did a show on it a couple of days ago. Michael Mayer is the name that keeps popping up if Philadelphia doesn't get Mason Taylor at 32, if they don't get their tight end, at some point in round 1. Okay, is that going to be a trade that makes us all go, oh, Michael Mayer? No, it's going to be like, okay, we'll see.
Nope.
A running back, if you don't get one, but you wouldn't know you didn't get one until after day 3, and there's so many in rounds 4 or 5. You trade back, you get an additional 6th-round draft picks. So I just can't picture the name yet, and that probably tells me it's going to be someone that we weren't expecting, not a big name. We go, oh, okay. I mean, DeAndre Swift was big because they didn't have a running back, but he wasn't that big, right? It wasn't Saquon Barkley. It was just like, a starting caliber running back that the Eagles had interest in previously, who had some success at the goal line, and because we didn't have a running back at the time, it made a lot of sense. We got excited. So,
right, yes.
I just can't think of anybody.
And I'm right there with you. Like, there's, I've seen and I've talked about Kayvon Thibodeau. It'd be cool. It'd be great if you want to try to trade for. I think that he'd be a good potential fit in Fangio's defense. I know that he had interest previously before his draft came in for a top 30 visit with Philly. So, how he likes to go back to the well of players that he had on his board and was interested in. But there's just so many things. Like, do the Giants even want to do business with Philly at any point? Probably not. Like, I can't imagine Joe Shane's going, let's risk it. Let's see if we can win a trade here.
Not at all.
Not going to go that route. So there's that one. You have some others that have been thrown out there. We talked about safeties, but if you're going to go any direction, why not just sign Justin? Like, you don't need to trade for a safety. Just sign Justin Simmons. It's the best option out of who you probably would trade for anyway. So I'm with you. That to me, it doesn't seem as likely. Now, it's not to say we've seen in the past, so just because it's not a big name, so to speak, Howie could make a trade in the 4th, 5th, 6th round that we're like, okay, cool, like decent, right? But then you could turn into, because even DeAndre Swift, we were excited about it, but it still wasn't like oh my gosh, like we've got a Pro Bowl running back. But then with this offensive line, you could see a lot of guys were able to have success, but similarly with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Now, that wasn't during the draft, but the first time that he was traded for back in, August or like right before the season started, that was one where, again, you're kind of like, okay, cool. Like, he's shown some things, but it's not like a over the moon about it, and then turns into the stud that he was and, has been multiple times, I guess, for Philly. So, there could be someone that makes an impact, but I think I'm with you also. It's not like household name's not the right word for it, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just not one of those big blockbuster trades like, oh my gosh, the Eagles got, so-and-so.
Right.
Somebody else threw out, like, Trey Hendrickson. No, that's not even close to where we're going with. We're not bringing up Trey Hendrickson. Eagle 1 with a 5. Appreciate that, Matt. Said, just hard to believe 3 other teams will let Howie have a hat trick. Trade out Howie trade back or trade out Howie can kill it in the 2nd round. I trading back to me, and watch it, we're gonna stay up all night tomorrow, and then they will, and I'll be like, oh, this was the right move. I like the deal. Sure.
I mean, what do you want? You just want multiple 2nd-round draft picks, but then multiple 2nd-round draft picks, and then you're just gonna take 12 picks in 2026. Like, you're gonna draft 12 players in 2026. I just find it so hard to believe they're gonna take 3 3rd-round draft picks. Next April. This screams like the draft that is not deep, right? Now, it has a lot of talent, but it's not necessarily deep as it was last year when Quinion Mitchell went 22 and Cooper DeJean went in round 2, right? Mm-hmm. This feels like the draft where you're going to have your list of 10 guys in round 1. 10 guys that you go, if we can have any of these 10, they would be an absolute superstar. Abdul Carter, obviously, is one of the 10. So, obviously, if Philly has 10 guys they see as first-rounders, the odds of landing any of those 10 are probably, half. 5 of them are realistic options for Philadelphia. So then, go get one of them. As you watch them jump off the board, you lose one at 14, you lose one at 17. There's 3 left at 22. I would pick up the phone and start trying to go ahead and move up to get one of these guys that the Eagles themselves have identified as being a surefire starter, a surefire star, a great football player, whatever they, grade it all out there. That's what I would do, and I really feel like Philadelphia will. I just see trading back and going, okay, I mean, I guess you just want to just hoard talent, and maybe the whole fear of 2029 when all the cap stuff starts to go crazy, you want to get as many different rookie contracts as possible. That makes sense. But to me, this is the draft where you use some of your 12 draft picks next year, a lot of your fifth-round draft picks this year, and go ahead and move up and get one of the guys that you have on your top at the top of your draft board.
I agree with you on like the idea of trading up, because the 12 select again, you're like, you don't need that many.
So many.
You can get the players, you can move up. But I kind of like I disagree a little bit, or coming from a different place of, I kind of like that third round range. So I could see you getting multiple picks there. Because like if you go look, and I don't have the graphic up here, but shout out to Anthony DeBono, because he got like the best graphic that I've seen that comes to top 30 visits, relative athletic score, where they fall based on projections, mock drafts. So I'm sure people have seen it. But just the breakdown for those. And there's a lot of those guys that are kind of like the back end of the second round, even into the third round or fourth round. And, you know, if you've done any sort of number of mock drafts, then you know how often you're kind of like anywhere from the 60 to like 110 range. You want like 5 of those guys. Like you look at those top 30 visits going like, oh man, I need like 5 selections at this point. So not to say that I think that, you know, I was going to take 5 selections from 60 to 110, but I do think that there's a healthy amount of solid players that can make a decent difference on this team if they can, you know, trade up from, because like, what is it, like 164, 165, 160. There's so many coupled there. Just go ahead, trade away some of those, move on up to 100 or 90, you know, somewhere around that. You've already got a couple. You've got it 64, you've got it 96. Maybe you do trade Dallas Goedert if it's somewhere around like the Colts, let's say, because Shane Steichen said they're looking for a tight end. They've got 117.
He did.
So I don't know. I could see a world of that where there's guys that, again, more middle rounds, but I think that they can make some decent impact. But anyway, a lot of ways to go, obviously. So
if you had to bet money, you are mortgaging, you're betting your house, mortgaging your entire financial future on who the Eagles would take if they stayed put at 32 right now. Who would it be?
If they stay put at 32, gosh.
Stay put at 32.
Man, that's difficult.
I mean,
I really don't. I know. I think he's going to trade up. So this is not answering your question, but if I was going to say, I really believe that Walter Nolen is going to fall far enough. I think that Walter Nolen's going to fall far enough.
You would bet your house they're going to get Walter Nolen tomorrow?
If you're for, like, what else? Yeah, the most likely, sure. I would actually, yeah. I mean, I'm going to lose money regardless, but I really do. I think that Walter Nolen is one of those players that there's enough teams that are kind of like, I'm kind of dancing around it. I'm not exactly sure. Character, does he fit with us?
Okay.
You know, I mean, look, it's the same league that passed on Jalen Carter all the way to 9. So, you know, maybe they learned their lesson. Maybe they're like, well, we are not going to let this happen again. But I just, I don't know. If he gets to 22, 23, 24, like we said, how he's going to pounce. I think that's happening. So
I think it's, I would bet my house on Starks. If I had to bet on one player, I would say it's Starks. And then I would also, this is unfair because I picked 3 players. I think Trey Amos and Mike Green are the other 2 players that you really need to keep an eye on. I think if Mike Green is there at 32 overall and Malachi Starks isn't, unless they have him as undraftable, which they've, you know, Big Dom has done his research and looked into his history, all the stuff that happened in high school, then, you know, whatever. But I'd be shocked if a guy like Vic Fangio watches Mike Green and they clear his background, that they would pass on Mike Green. So, but Malachi Starks, to me, if I had to put money on it, I think would be the most likely. I do think you have to trade up. I think I could get past Baltimore. I think has been mocked a lot to go ahead and take him. I'm trying to remember who else. There's someone else there in the kind of mid-20s that is consistently mocked to take Malachi Starks. And so you might have to go up not as far. You could swap picks and then give him like a later round pick and be good to go. But I would bet it on Malachi Starks.
Okay. I can respect that. Lots of people are telling me that I'm going to be homeless now. So in all fairness, you did hear that I was cornered into that bet. There's no out. I have to make some sort of bet. So, you know, for people that are, I think that's the most. If I had to go with it, I'm going to say, and it might be wishful thinking, but again, like I said last year, I said Quinyon Mitchell, and that happened the year before that, Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, and it happened. So regardless of who I say, at this point, I'm due to miss. So I guess we'll just throw that one out there. But
okay.
I didn't see Anthony's here. I don't know if I saw who Anthony. He said in our stream. He said in our stream, Mason Taylor. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I can see your screen is kind of frozen, but
you
can kind of see
it's the same for you. So
okay,
go ahead.
I was saying that Anthony had said Mason Taylor whenever we recorded, so I assume that he's sticking with that one.
Okay. Yeah, Mason Taylor is either the worst kept secret because there's a lot of buzz around how he loves him, or it's all smoke and like Mason Taylor. So I could see it 100%. I mean, I could definitely see Mason Taylor. According to it seemed like Daniel Jeremiah, I talked about him on my show today, was trying to say that Howie Roseman told him that the most guaranteed for-sure player possible available at 32 is Mason Taylor. But he didn't actually say Howie Roseman. He just kind of alluded to it, so we won't know. But, okay, so the three of us, DeBona has a tight end. I have a safety. You have a defensive tackle. It shows you the craziness of this Eagle draft. No one really knows.
I'm going with the biggest, baddest player. So
okay,
we'll just take that one. Tyler with a 10.
Okay.
10 more. Appreciate you, Tyler. Howie gets all the praise, but are we going to talk about how since Nick has been head coach, we haven't had a bad draft in coaching tenure?
Fair.
It's a fair point.
Very fair. Yeah, I mean, listen, Nick Sirianni is the kind of coach that is blamed for everything when things go wrong, and then not really praised that much for winning a Super Bowl, right? I mean, very few people. We're talking about Nick Sirianni, being like this, top 5 head coach in the National Football League after the Super Bowl, and it's just the way it's going to go, I think, for his entire tenure. He wins a second one. Maybe that'll change out, but we'll see. But I would agree. I'm sure that he has a massive hand in who Philadelphia drafts, and not just Howie Roseman, not just the owner and the offensive coordinator, whatever you want to say. But yeah, shout out to Nick Sirianni.
He deserves the contract too, if and when that happens. So Jeffrey has alluded to it a couple of different times, but it feels like just a matter of time. He'll get it done. Patrick with a 5 said, "How you guys feeling about Howie trading up big? I feel like something big cooking. Can you shout out my boy Joe? He's a sad 49ers fan. Go Birds, baby."
Joe. It stinks to be Joe.
Sorry about you, Joe. The good ones can beat the Chiefs, but ouch.
Yeah, well.
Go Birds. Go Birds, baby.
Big trade up. I think the biggest that they could go was like 15. I don't think they get higher than 15. I mean, a 20 pick jump to 10 would be extremely expensive, and so it's not going to happen. 15 is already very expensive. Like 15 is going to cost you a first-round draft pick next year. To go from 15 to 32 or 32 to 15, you're giving up 2 first-round draft picks. I don't think that they want to do that, especially with the way the contracts are all laid out, to where in a couple years you're going to have all of them come to a head. So you want to have first-round talent still on rookie deals. The Eagles have thrived on that the past couple of years. And so the highest that I can realistically see them going is 22. I'm pretty sure that's the Niner or the Viking pick. That to me makes the most sense in terms of the absolute cap of how high you could go be 22.
I agree. That's what I would have said as well, because the Vikings, they don't have too many selections either. So if they're wanting to trade back and get some more draft capital, perfect opportunity. Say it's Walter Nolen, say it's Malachi Starks, whoever you want to insert there that's a trade up. I think that's realistic. It'd be fun. I mean, Patrick, I get it. I understand. It's not out of the realm of possibility because it's Howie Roseman, but 32 to, like teens, or especially early teens. I don't know what you're, like you say, feel like something big is cooking, but like that's where my head goes of early teens. That's just a lot. They have some draft capital, but that one feels like a little extra than what Howie might end up doing. So, we'll see. It's going to be fun.
We'll see. It's going
to
be fun.
Streaming tomorrow night, so come hang out. Lots of giveaways.
Yep.
It feels like appropriate now. We should probably test this thing out before we wrap up.
Let's test it out.
So for people curious and have stuck around, you get a sneak peek at some of the stream and how it'll be tomorrow. So let's get the draft scoreboard up first. So here is the draft scoreboard, the team.
There you go.
And the on the clock.
Yep. Which will change the pick is in. You're going to know who is on the clock and who has already made a pick. So keep it simple there, as usual. Had that last year.
There we go. And I'm going to play around with some of the camera positioning, but I was not able to do
Sure.
that before, so it'll be a little bit different. But basically, that's what you're looking at there. And then if we were going to, start the draft, okay, so I didn't actually do the Titans logo, but of course we'll have the right logo when you're looking at it. But Titans on the clock, the pick is in, so we'll move that. Not too bad.
Gotta like that sound.
Yep.
Gotta like that sound.
And then who do they take? Come on, play for me now.
Oh, here's our first check.
Is this gonna work? Come on.
Yeah, if it's not working now.
There we go. Okay.
It's a little delayed.
Well, I had to double click it. I didn't realize. I thought I clicked it the first time. So, but it worked. That's the main thing. It's slightly delayed, but there was no automatic mute. Everyone in the chat, please let us know volume-wise. This is the same settings we had last week.
Yes.
But we just want to make sure volume, you can hear us. The music's not too loud.
Yes.
You got the graphics, everything there. So.
There you go. There's Cam Ward. I guess you'll make it to where we can set this up later, but make sure that it repeats in case we want to talk about it longer. But then if you wanted to cut it right now, let's see. You can just stop it and take us back to the previous screen, right?
There we go.
Just so that's if something were to happen, right? Or we don't want to talk about it too
for sure.
long.
Yeah.
Again, we're just testing things out. Okay, there you go. Well, let's try a couple more and make sure it looks good, sounds awesome.
There we go.
I like that.
People,
trying to make it look good and look official. So,
good.
All right.
Okay.
I got a lot. Everyone's giving us thumbs up for that.
Sweet.
Good. Sound levels are good. That's what we wanted to know. I got to blow your eardrums out.
Heck yeah. Now we move the pick is in away and on the clock back. I would move, a team's logo, but all I've got right now is the Eagles. So new team in on the clock.
Sure.
There you go. Pick is in again. And next up, this one feels like, somewhat realistic. So, all right, now we'll do the selection here. Abdul Carter.
There you go. That's going to be fun. It feels like he's definitely going to be a Giant, so that sounds like it's going to be pretty much a guarantee. Now, this is for you and me, Josh, but Cam Ward and Abdul Carter, I exported in a higher resolution, so they're much larger files. They seem to be working fine. But I want you to try, after Abdul Carter, some of the other ones that I sent. I'm trying to remember who was the other group that I sent, but they're much smaller files. I just want to see how they look and sound. So
okay,
let's just check that out. Yeah, because I do like the wipe, and so you start to wonder if I just take the time to export them all. But let's see one of the smaller ones here. So
okay, actually, Cam Ward was a smaller one.
Was he?
Yeah, I'm looking at here. It was only like 190 megabytes.
Okay. Well, then
the
Abdul
was Carter was the 5
gigs.
So that's a big one. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, they both.
Well,
worked.
and then and Cam Ward wiped in just fine too, according to the graphic how it should. Okay.
Yeah,
interesting.
I could do
All right,
Colson Loveland too. Just one more time.
Go ahead.
That's a smaller one. So
yeah, let's go ahead and just check that one out.
All right, pick is in, and Colston Loveland. It's good.
Wow. Who else did I send you? Just what's the full list that I've sent so
Ashton
far?
Jeanty and Armand Mimbo.
Let's do Genty, but as well. I want to check Genty because he's a really long one. We're just trying to make sure it's not going to crash on people. Because if it crashes, we're in trouble tomorrow night.
That's true. It did crash on night 2.
Night 2, yeah.
We got a little bit of some updated technology here, which
issues
to get this stream started, but that was more of an organization thing. Okay, so one more pick. We'll try this
Genty.
one. And here we go. Yeah, that's a 2-minute clip, 2-minute 15-second clip.
It's long. Yeah. There's a lot of clips of Ashton Genty on out there for people. So.
Not too difficult to find some of those, yeah. Other prospects says, it is.
Did I make these? I made the highlights. I did not make the name. It's technically a Mogert is what you would call that. My buddy made that for me. Shout out to Matt Johnson for helping us out with that. But it all works. It looks fantastic, too. It looks fantastic.
Oh, heck yeah.
Very good.
It's going to be a blast.
Cool. All right, well, I got more highlights to make tomorrow. I think I'm almost done, but it'd be going down to the wire. We're going to have about probably 45 players, I think, is the number that we've settled on who are potential first rounders. And so if you don't go in the first round, you'll have a highlight in round 2, which we'll obviously be able to go ahead and show. But, we got to make enough. And I think we're going to go through and double check because there are a couple names that are popping up on draft boards that we do not have on our list. We might need to add that could go in round 1. So we'll see.
Yes. Yep. And then we'll also have a ticker at the bottom. It's not on there yet, but we will have that too. So keeping people up to date on, who's been selected, who's still potentially available out there, and which teams. So we'll get that one.
And we will also be ahead of ESPN. If you're watching on ESPN, we will be ahead, and we will know the picks sooner. We were that way last year, and it'll be that way this year. So just if you are wanting to know and get it all, first, we will be the ones to have it. We will definitely have it earlier than any of the other major chains that have broadcast delays and stuff like that. We have a delay, but we'll be able to get the picks a lot sooner.
People wonder how that happens, but we cannot divulge our source, but we have our ways of getting the picks beforehand. So someone's it happens every draft. We had a couple comments. It's like, how do you know who they already selected? And I'm watching on TV, and it has not been announced.
We know.
So it's like, well,
we know. We're
Twitter's
first. Good minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Like we're pretty ahead.
Yep.
So
we've gotten a couple of them wrong,
tomorrow?
but then we come back. So
start time tomorrow, Josh. 8:00 is the draft. What time are we going live? Let people know. 7:30, 7:15. It all depends. We'll probably be a game time decision. We'll let you know.
Yeah, I would say. Probably not any more than like 30 minutes before. But my thoughts like 7:30, probably.
Yeah,
that's my thought.
So 7:30 Eastern time. Frankie Ray says, "What do you do if someone's selected that's not on your list of content?" We try to not have that happen. It happened twice last year.
Yep. We got highlights of me and Thomas throwing the football, so you can watch those. No, I'm kidding. We just
tell you who it is. We'll just tell you who it is.
I'll probably screen share on Twitter, and you'll see a picture of the player. That's probably what it'll come down to. So.
Yep. That's what it's going to be. So I think we're going to have them all, though. I've been looking at all the mock drafts. I'm going to do a full check tomorrow. We got a whole checklist of who we have all made highlights for. So. We're putting a lot of effort into this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. So we had a lot of fun last year. So hopefully we can duplicate that.
Yes. Yep. And just, pray that we don't crash the YouTube stream because it happened night 2. Surely it won't. Like, just fingers crossed, knock on wood, we're going to be okay. You never know. Dirty Air. What's up, man? What's up, Gary? Content looks and sounds great. Pumped to watch.
There you go.
IBH says looks great, man, also. So
we appreciate that.
There we go.
Right on.
All right. Well, I think that does it for us. We've got lots more work to do still. Not quite there, but everybody gets a sneak peek for what's going to take place. And you've heard it here. Predictions. Who's it going to be for the Eagles? Let us know in the chat. If you're watching this thing back on rerun, let us know your predictions, your thoughts of who the Eagles take. I've got WalterNolen. Thomas has selection for Malachi Starks, a little straight-up potential for Malachi Starks. And then Anthony DeBona. I don't think he mentioned it here on the comment section, but like I said, he did it on the last video that we recorded and said Mason Taylor. So that was the potential surprise that he's going with. So let us know. Actually, one last super chat as we're about to end. Pork Chop, appreciate the 5. This is where you guys think Scatbo will end up. Looking forward to watching the stream tomorrow. Go Birds. And also hit that like button and sub. Thank you.
There you go.
Make sure and do that.
There you go. Yep.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I have no idea, really.
I don't know either.
There's always a couple players that you're kind of like very much wild cards. I've seen this, and I'm sure that you've seen a similar sentiment that everyone has, but like he's one of those players that you watch him in games and you're like, yeah, he's a football player. Like he can make plays and he can do things, like Peyton Hillis comes to mind. But like there's also can he do it longevity? Can he make it to a second contract? And how much are you even going to be able to get out of him? Because the scouts were saying, I think either there's so many different guys. So I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, but it may have been someone else. That was basically like people are not sure how long he can play like that. Can he last a season running like that, trying to just bulldoze players all the time, taking potentially unnecessary shots, just playing physical. But he makes plays. Like look at college football playoffs. I mean, everybody remembers, or you just look at the past season. But I don't know. I think you could get one team that values him a lot higher and they take him. But it also wouldn't surprise me if you're like, man, this dude is just continuing to fall, and we're getting into even day 3. Like, that would not be a shock at all of just like, hey, he's still out there. Like, is a team going to eventually go out there and get maybe? I don't know. It's one of the mysteries of the minute.
I agree.
We'll see.
I agree. Yep.
Yeah, Prophet says 5th rounder at best. And see, that's why I say, like, maybe a team gets earlier. Maybe one's, want to grab him 4th round and go quick on day 3, but it could be late in day 3 and you still don't have him off the board. So,
cool.
All right. Again, appreciate you guys. Going to be fun tomorrow night. Come hang out.
I can't wait.
Button, like on the way out. And for Thomas, we'll see you. Go Birds.
Go Birds.